Welcome back everybody to yet another episode of Dark Souls 2. Today of course taking on more of the optional content in the game before we then take on the final boss in the Throne of Wand in like 1 or 2 episodes. So what we did last time, you probably remember, we took on the whole Pilgrims of the Dark Covenant and also then of course the boss connected to that, the Dark Lurker, and that is also where we got this lovely ass dragon chime from. And that is, as a matter of fact, the best chime in the game, at least looking at what my character is like and what it then gives us, because it does have an S scaling with lightning, and us using Great Lightning Spear and just standard Lightning Spear a lot, I'm totally going to go for this whole dragon chime. So we're actually going to have to pop a bunch of souls right here just to get us up to like maybe 200,000 or something like that. So that we can then level ourselves up to not 42, which is what I said was going to be the whole like maximum faith for the soul character. Nope, totally forgot about the dragon chime. We're now going to 50, allowing us to then of course wield it properly, and then we will use a few additional souls to get that dragon chime to maybe like +2 or something like that. I don't quite remember what I ended up doing right here, but that basically should also then tell you that this is very much post-commentary. And the reason for this being post-commentary is that we of course are taking on the Ancient Dragon today. And Ancient Dragon is something you can't do with just the 1 life. Not even 2 is enough. Not even frickin' 6, 7, or 8 is enough for that fucker. I believe it took me a good maybe 11 deaths or something like that. All of which I think I'm going to show off in this whole video right here. I don't think that I cut a single one out. If I did, I do want to apologize for that, but you are probably, at least if I didn't fuck anything up, gonna get the full experience regardless. Just edit it down quite a bit, because otherwise, of course, this would be very, very, very long. I believe the whole recording session, ended up lasting me like 60 minutes or something like that. Now what you're gonna get is maybe like a good 10 or 8 minutes of prelude, other stuff not connected to the Ancient Dragon, and then the rest of the episode is going to be Ancient Dragon solely. So probably it's fair to say like a good 30 minutes spent on the Ancient Dragon. But let's maybe focus on what we are doing right here. You might remember I picked up a cracked eye orb in the Undead Crypt, and now as we go down here you can see that the crushed eye stirs. And that is kind of curious, isn't it? Because Licia is something who previously helped us, but also somebody who we weren't necessarily too sure about. Just because there were a few instances where what she was saying didn't really feel like it fit with her whole like character and point in the world, right? She's very much a cleric. She oftentimes talks about helping people, but there's a few sentences that she just says, I guess, that don't necessarily fit with all of that. And then also you run into the Nameless Usurper a lot, and that whole fucker looks very similar to Licia. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I think I've also kind of tried pointing it out previously. But yes, all of those things essentially hint at what is happening right here. The fact that she is actually not who she made out to be, but instead apparently somewhat evil. I don't necessarily know what her goal is in this whole world. But the crushed eye orb, of course, once you then go back down here, very much indicates that there is a mystery connected to her and that you can then challenge her, because seemingly she tried to kill you previously. I think we ran into her in the Dranglake Castle, and also in the Undead Crypt. Yeah, and then of course that was in the form of the Nameless Usurper, which I would imagine is her. I mean, that's what I'm taking away from her. She does look exactly like him or her, and also all the other stuff very much indicates that being the case. So, pretty interesting. It's very similar to Lautrec, I guess, in that regard, right? A person that right out the gate kind of tries to much rather build up sympathies with the player character, but then betrays him and actually actively tries to harm the player. Of course, Lautrec did that by killing the Firekeeper in Dark Souls 1, and you could then evade him in Anor. And here it's, of course, Licia herself going out to kill you in a few areas in the game, and you then going back right here to then kill her. And I don't know if there's any, if there's more significance to that than I'm now realizing, because I do also find it pretty curious that, yeah, it's Licia and Lautrec, both characters with an L, maybe with this whole game already having this whole theme of reincarnation and stuff repeating itself, that maybe Lautrec is also kind of part of Licia, but I couldn't really confirm that whatsoever. It's just this whole weird feeling that I have in the back of my head. But anyway, to maybe first of all disregard all of the whole lore connections and instead focus on this whole challenge, this whole fight right here, and the strategy connected to that. It's relatively straightforward. All you gotta pay attention to is just your patience, right? You just gotta stay calm for the entirety of this. The whole kind of gimmick connected to the fight is that she will heal herself quite a bit. She will constantly do that, and the only thing that you then gotta be careful about is that you do not get too cocky and start hitting her and then run out of stamina and have her do Wrath of the Gods too much. I, at least with my character, was of course able to suffer through one, but the second one totally would have killed me, so I actually then very much focused on always stepping back and drinking some Estus. But yeah, that is basically then the strategy for this. Always be careful, always try to have full stamina when you then approach her, and after you then of course deplete your stamina doing the combos that you do, step back, heal up if necessary, and only attack her whenever your stamina is recharged again. And then of course it's just basically a war of attrition. Eventually you will wear her down enough so that you can then throw an extra hit or two in and then kill her. But that is basically Licia. It's also pretty funny. I of course, for like a few seconds ago, showed off the items that you get. You get the Rotunda Lockstone, as I believe it's called. And it's so funny because that actually then implies that Licia wasn't even working that whole contraption using magic, which is totally what she does say. She does say that this whole thing does not work for somebody like you. You have to believe enough or something like that. And you then, of course, have to pay her in order to open up the way to Huntsman's Copse in that case. And it's pretty funny that you then find out that there's no magic involved whatsoever. Instead, all this time she was using a key on her own. And we now have that. We also have the Saint's Dress right here. Also, once again, implying that clerics aren't always who they seem. It's pretty fun like that. I always like how Souls game do this, right? You have a character, and then only later on you will realize that that character was not necessarily who you expected him or her to be. And that is very much a theme throughout the entirety of the whole Souls series. That was already in Demon Souls, in the form of, I forget what his name is. It's the guy that you, I believe, find in, oh my god, why am I so bad? In the second Archstone area of, I believe, the Tower of Latria. Is that where you find him? I don't know, where you have to cut down the chains connected to the heart and stuff like that. There's a guy who will then betray you and also, I believe, start killing other NPCs. And then, of course, there was Lautrec in Dark Souls, and there's now Licia here in Dark Souls 2. Almost said Demon Souls 2, but no, that is not what we're playing. Anyway, that basically then concludes that. Just a very nice little optional thing, kind of mostly background story to an existing character that we've been dealing with for quite some time now. I actually always liked Licia. It's then kind of weird to find out that she was pretty evil. I mean, bitch in the end tried to kill us and stuff like that. But nope, that's not happening with Potatoes. He is not somebody that wants to be fucked with. Instead, he will fuck you in return. Hopefully that didn't sound too offensive, because now listening to my own voice, it kind of came off a little offensive. So yeah, I do want to apologize, but let's now focus on what is ahead of us. The Ancient Dragon. We of course are now going back to the Dragon Shrine, we're doing this whole ascend again. We of course have to deal with all the freaking enemies right here. But this you will only get to see, yeah, like once essentially, because of course, as you can probably imagine, I will die to the Ancient Dragon a lot. I did already point that out, I think. But yeah, that is totally going to happen, and I will totally make use of the power of editing and cut it down to what is then hopefully going to be pretty, yeah, I don't know, just more enjoyable to watch for the most part. But here, this first ascent I will show, and I will show kind of my strategy connected to all of this. Right. Anyway, so I'm always going to go ahead and fight all of these guys. They will eventually despawn, making this a little bit easier for myself. But then, of course, the final thing that you have to do, so running up the staircase, is something I will always just do by passing by all the enemies. I will never fight them. I will always just run by. And that, of course, is also going to lead to some problems, but I guess we're going to go into that a little bit more once we get to it. For now, let's maybe focus on what we are trying to do here. I've talked about it previously. Ancient Dragon is something that I wanted to do before I then would challenge Vendrick, because by killing him, you will actually get your hands on another giant soul. We have already picked up 4 of those, I believe. Let me see. 1 down in the Black Gulch, and then where are the other ones even? Yeah, then there's like 3 in all the giant memories, right? That is the 4 that we have. Now there's 1 that you obtain by then, of course, defeating the Ancient Dragon. And there's some more significance connected to that. I will also talk about that very much in this episode. But for now, what I do want to focus on, maybe for the first 2 attempts or something like that, the actual strategy connected to the Ancient Dragon and what you've got to do in order to defeat him and not get too frustrated. You will still get frustrated though, that is very, very likely. Anyway, of course, now just going here, he's not going to attack you. It's basically the same way as he just behaved when we first ran into him. He's just going to sit there, wait for you to talk to him. Essentially, you of course also get the Ashen Mist heart by doing this the first time around. And that then, of course, also allowed us to enter the aforementioned dragon memories, or not the dragon memories, the dragon memory, and then also the giant memories as well. But now, by punching him a little bit, or working your magic, or whatever you want to do, he is totally going to aggro and become an optional boss. And a boss that I've never done before. Maybe I should also very much stress that I've never killed him before this whole recording that I did a little bit earlier this morning. And I did read up a little bit though. This was not me completely going into this not knowing what I was doing. I actually did not watch a video. I just read about him a little bit and found out that he supposedly is pretty weak to lightning. So that is then also what my strategy is kind of designed around, making use of my miracles, and for the most part the great lightning spear that I picked up not too long ago. So basic thing that you want to do here is baiting him into doing this very straightforward fire breath attack, because that is the easiest to dodge off of his attacks, I find. And while he's doing that, you can very easily throw in like 2 lightning spears for the most part, I believe. Kind of depends. Sometimes you just want to do the 1, but oftentimes you can actually throw a total of 2 at him. And then what you wanna avoid, so while you wanna bait him into doing the straightforward attack, what you wanna avoid is when he flies up and then breathes fire down on the ground, because that has an insane range. You basically want to run away as soon as you see him flap his wings for the first time. That is basically what then indicates that you are going to have to get the fuck out, because otherwise you're going to die, very similar to how I died just a few seconds ago right here. But yeah, I don't know. Just maybe to reiterate real quick before we then talk a little bit more about the Ancient Dragon and his significance in the whole lore grand scheme of things. Bait this attack. Attack him while he's doing it. As soon as he stops, you basically position yourself in front of the guy and see what attack he is going to do next. If it's the straightforward one, you then keep attacking him. If he flies up, you run away as fast as you can and as far away as you can. And then just rinse and repeat, essentially. I'm not going to do any melee damage to him. I'm not going to fuck with anything close to him, just because he also has melee attacks. And also, I believe if you're standing like behind him, there's stuff he can do that involves him like breathing fire underneath him. So basically, I don't know, looking underneath himself, finding you, and then breathing fire at you, which is a pretty big pain in the ass. But staying far away and staying in front is key to this boss fight. I find it's basically the only way that I am now showing this off, and also what I found to be the best strategy for all of this. It might depend what kind of build you have, of course. This should very much work for both sorcerers and clerics, and me being mostly cleric, I had a pretty easy time with him. Once again, it's not easy whatsoever. Actually, every single hit that he's going to do is a insta-kill. So if you get hit by his fire, you're dead. Melee, you're dead. Fall off the edge, you're dead. Luckily, I did not do that once in this whole recording, but I could very much see that happening while you're just trying to very quickly run away from his fire attacks. So always be careful and just keep calm. It's a part basically of every single boss fight in the game, and every game in the Souls series for that matter, but even more so with the Ancient Dragon. I think that staying calm and not getting too cocky is a big aspect, just because of that whole fact, right? The fact that he kills you so quickly. The only, I guess, upside to that is that you do not need to worry about your like S's use or anything like that. No matter how low your health is, he's gonna kill you. So I guess in that sense your health is always low, but the good thing is you don't have to worry about keeping it up. But anyway, let's now maybe focus a little bit more on the Ancient Dragon and what kind of his backstory is, what we can find out by looking at some other aspects of Dark Souls 2 and what that tells us about him and his significance. So where am I gonna start? We're gonna have to go back a few episodes for this. So you might remember me going to Aldia's Keep, of course, and that was very much a place where we found out about a lot of experiments. There we go. Thank you, brain, for correctly putting that sentence in order. So there we ran into all kinds of weird creatures. We also picked up some items talking about Aldia and how he was trying to do something with the golems and the power that Vendrick retrieved when he went over to the giants and then took what was theirs. They never specifically name it, but essentially Vendrick went over there, got a power, brought it to Aldia, who is basically the owner of that keep, right? You never run into him, more or less, and you only find out what he has done in his previous life. And then, of course, as you finish Aldia's Keep, you fight the Guardian Dragon right behind it, right basically as you leave Aldia's Keep in that whole big cage. And that then leads you to the Dragon Eyrie and also the Dragon Shrine, where you then find even more funky stuff, right? And one thing you also very much have to keep in mind now is that all of this is very much a direct sequel to Dark Souls 1. And Dark Souls 1 was a game where a big part of the story was how Seath basically betrayed his own, right? He was the one who then started killing all the dragons together with Gwyn and all those. Took all the dragons down, right? So in Dark Souls 1, a big part is that the dragons are dying out. They're basically not there anymore. All you run into is just the weird, like, semi-dragons, I guess, in the Valley of the Drakes. So just drakes, I guess, in that sense. And also dead ones, right? You always find these corpses and stuff like that. So Seath is, in Dark Souls 1, very much the last dragon, and you kill him as well. So what that tells us is that, theoretically, in Dark Souls 2, you are in a world without any dragons. There shouldn't be any. And yet you find one here, the Ancient Dragon. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure how I'm not going to get to this, because there's a lot to reveal right here, and hopefully I'm not spoiling anything unwanted. I mean, kind of this being the episode surrounding the Ancient Dragon, it's the best chance that I get to talk about this without spoiling too much. Well, spoiling too much. Spoilering is not necessarily a word. But alright. So, keep in mind, Aldia's Keep experiments. You run into this guy, and as you will find out, as I think I've already hinted at, by killing the Ancient Dragon, you get a giant soul. And that is not necessarily what you connect with the Ancient Dragons, right? Because we have totally picked, or we've encountered one before and then picked up his actual Ancient Dragon soul before, and that was very much in the Dragon Memory that we entered by interacting with that whole crystal down in Freya's lair. So, in that sense, we know that he's supposed to have an Ancient Dragon soul, but he doesn't. Once we kill him, what we get is a soul of a giant. And then, connecting that to Aldia's Keep, kind of the implication right there, at least in my opinion, is that the Ancient Dragon that you run into at the top of the Dragon Shrine is very much artificial, and seemingly was created by Aldia, or at least created in Aldia's Keep, by using a giant soul, right? You also find a lot of dead giants in Aldia's Keep. I think I pointed it out when we were there, but it was, maybe to describe it real quick, right above the whole like corrosive prison kind of thing down in the basement, right? There's one floor above, there's a hole in the ground where you can then also drop down into that whole corrosive prison kind of thing. And right behind that hole, there are a crap ton of giants, like just dead ones right there. And all of this, specifically how connected all of this is to Aldia's Keep, and how he drops a giant soul, then kind of implies that he's very artificial, isn't he? I mean, that's what I'm getting from that. I do not think that he is an actual dragon. It doesn't make sense in the world of Drangleic, just because this is very much happening after Lord Dran, and Lord Dran was where you then killed the last dragon. So maybe what they did here was very much try to bring back the dragons using whatever power Vendrick retrieved from the giants, and also a giant soul and stuff like that, in order to like artificially recreate dragons. And you might be wondering, why would they do that? Why would they try to get dragons back? I mean, dragons are pretty evil, aren't they? And the reason for that is also something that you can actually find information on, right? You can find reasons. That is like the cool thing about Dark Souls 2, that you can always find reasons for stuff. Very much like Licia, why are you fighting her? There's reasons for that. There's stuff hidden in the game that will then imply that, essentially. And with the dragon right here, why they wanted to do this, why they wanted to recreate and revive the dragons, is that Vendrick, as we all know, was looking for a cure, right? He was also very much affected by the curse of the undead. And the only creature, or at least one of the only creatures, I guess, that can't be affected by the curse, and also the only creature that is immortal, essentially, is the dragon, right? We all know that from Dark Souls 1. They are the ones having the thick scale armor, I guess, and just impenetrable guys. They are basically also often called the everlasting dragons, right? So they are the ones who have this whole invulnerability, and that was supposedly something that Vendrick, together with Aldia, then tried to uncover, tried to recreate, and tried to find out about, just so that he could then maybe using that whole research connected to the dragons and the recreation of those, use that to then maybe find a cure for the undead curse that everybody's plagued by. And in that sense, all of this is so exciting to me. I'm really a big fan of the way they expanded on Dark Souls in terms of lore. They certainly managed to fit in a lot of interesting stuff. And what I specifically like about the way that Dark Souls 2 handles all of this is that you are, for the most part, not aware of whatever the shit is going on. And that is also part of the game, right? You are supposed to be this puppet. The puppet that is there to take care of the whole monarch situation, right? You are basically summoned to Drang Lake to then take over as the monarch and, for the most part, like, restart the whole process, right? Rekindle the bonfire, give them another chance, just because Vendrick, of course, did not want to do that. He wanted to find a cure. He knew that rekindling the bonfire would not help with anything. It would just make history repeat itself. And supposedly then somebody sent you here to maybe either, of course, also find the cure. That is totally an option as well, I guess, but also maybe to then, depending on your choice, to then reset the whole cycle. And I don't know, this is all speculation also on my part, right? I'm not a conclusive source for all of this, like for any of this. I don't necessarily know everything about the lore, but that is kind of what I take away from all of this, right? The ancient dragon, Vendrick's connection to him, and Aldia. And also maybe something that I should very much note is that Aldia is oftentimes also considered to be the ancient dragon right here. So a lot of people also kind of think that Aldia maybe then eventually turned himself into this dragon. I don't know, I couldn't back that up. That's a theory that I just wanted to name since we're talking about him and his significance. But I don't know. I don't know why this is. We do find out that Aldia actually, I believe, escaped his keep and did something else. But I don't know if there's necessarily 100% accurate evidence backing all of this up. So while I'm not claiming that, I do believe that this is very much an artificial dragon right here that we're fighting right now. And also very much pay attention to how close I'm getting to defeating him. As you can see, I'm doing a really good job of just dodging his attacks and attacking him whenever he's doing his very simple fire breath. But that doesn't immediately mean that this is now going to be over and easy, because he can still mess you up quite badly. As I was saying in the beginning already, it all depends on how early you recognize what attacks he's going to do, right? If you see him flap his wings, you run away, you avoid that attack. But if you see him breathe his fire, you also have to run to the side, because otherwise he's still going to hit you with that. And in that sense, it's relatively straightforward if you know a strategy. The thing is just that it's so punishing if you fuck up just once. And I can already tell you, and I mean, you already probably figured that out by looking at the length of this video. This is not the final attempt right here. This is not me now succeeding with this whole fight. Instead, I will get confused in just a few seconds and die to him, unfortunately. Another time, this is now, I don't know, what is it, like the 9th time or whatever that I'm now dying to him, or maybe 8th. I couldn't really tell you. It's just so unfortunate that I got so close right here. And guys, I can only tell you, I can only like freaking try my best to recreate kind of the emotions that I had earlier this morning when I was doing this. But I was shouting all over the place. I was sitting here in my room just, God freaking damn it, how dare you, ancient dragon, how dare you do this to me? And this is now where I got confused, where I didn't know where his attack would start. I should have just ran to the left side of him, but I didn't and died. And now we have to do this over and over and over again. And then of course you die on your ascend and stuff like that. It's all so difficult. It so is. But of course, as I was saying, once you kind of have the rhythm down, you can very much take him down. All you gotta do is focus, and also probably bring a lot of these wilted dusk herb kind of things, right? That is certainly a big focus as well, because that way you can replenish your spells. And since I'm a cleric, and since I do base my strategy for this guy around my lightning spears, that is something I always want to have, right? I don't want to find myself running out of lightning spears and then having to take him on without any of that shit, because I believe taking him down melee is going to be a pretty big challenge. I don't think I've ever seen anybody take him on like that, and also never read about anybody taking him on like that. But anyway, let's now fucking do this. This is now it, you guys. So watch me be amazing at all of this and take down the ancient dragon, or basically what somebody at least claims to be is an ancient dragon. But yeah, also if you have any additional stuff, maybe if you disagree with something that I said, maybe I fucked something up, for all I know, that probably happened. Just let me know what you think about the whole ancient dragon and his whole significance here in the world. If he's artificial, if he's an actual dragon, and who created him, why they created him, stuff like that. It's all really interesting. Like, this is one of my favorite aspects of the entirety of Dark Souls 2 lore, so I would very much appreciate some responses on that one. But alright, so maybe to talk a little bit more about what this now means for the whole progress in this whole playthrough. Of course, this was now the last requirement for Vendrick, right? We now, by killing him, are going to get the 5th giant soul, and that means that Vendrick is at his weakest, because I did say previously that having giant souls actually does make that fight easier. So now, having retrieved all of them, of course, we have the best odds you can possibly have, at least with the build that we have, of course, and there's also some other things that you maybe have to consider, but we have now made it significantly easier for ourselves, and that is really good. So that, of course, then means that Vendrick is totally something we will take on in the next episode. There's one additional optional boss left then, very much the Executioner's Chariot in the Undead Purgatory, a side area to the Huntsman's Copse, and that is something we'll probably also do in that next one. And then after that episode, probably already gonna go ahead and take on the final boss of the game then. At that point, I don't really see why we would dick around for much longer. I don't think there's anything else that I can do. Maybe, I mean, for all I know, we can probably also take down the final boss in that next episode. Kind of depends on how well I'm gonna do against Vendrick, but I guess it doesn't really matter too much now, does it? I don't really want it to be this super long video, but at the same time, if we take him down after like 30 minutes, I may as well go ahead and then also kill the final boss in the Throne of Want. Alright, but I don't know what else to say necessarily. I think I covered most of the stuff that I wanted to say for this whole video. Maybe my quick conclusion to the Ancient Dragon fight: I don't think it's the most interesting and best designed one in the game, but it's still a pretty nice challenge, right? Because he's very different from everything else in the game, just because he's so huge. Like, this is a pure ranged fight, at least the way that I'm tackling it, of course. But this is only based on me trying to freaking avoid his attacks, and in that sense, I actually did enjoy it quite a bit. Luckily, it wasn't too difficult for me. I mean, I did still die quite a bit, but it's not as bad as I expected it to be. Then again, probably a reason for that is that I read up on him a little bit before jumping into the fight. But, I mean, other than that, I guess it's somewhat unfair, maybe. Yeah, as I was saying, not the best designed fight. I don't know if I want to call it unfair, but the kind of design flaw, at least in my opinion, with this fight is that you, at least the first few attempts, can't really figure out how quickly he's going to kill you and how long of a range he has, and that will then lead to quite a few frustrating deaths, just because at that point you don't know what his pattern is. You cannot anticipate anything. The first time that you run in here and aggro him, he's gonna kill you. Like, there's no way around that. If you don't know anything about him, he is basically 100% going to kill you, right? Because at that point you don't have any idea of how powerful and big his whole fire breath attack is. So you're gonna die at least once in this fight, and all the other times you're probably gonna die as well. I don't think that anybody can figure out the strategy for him in just the first attempt. So while there are some design flaws connected to it, and design flaws in the sense that using the standard Dark Souls mechanics, you cannot anticipate anything. You will have to die against him. And by all means prove me wrong, but that is truly how I feel. I don't think that anybody has ever defeated this guy on his first attempt. Yeah, in that sense, I don't think that it's necessarily all that great design, but it does offer a nice challenge, and it actually ended up being a lot of fun going back here and attempting this whole thing. And one reason for that is, of course, how strong he is, but also visually a really amazing boss fight, in my opinion. Like, this is the biggest thing in terms of bosses that you've seen in any Souls game so far. Is there anything bigger than this? Maybe the Dragon God in Demon Souls, but I don't really know that for sure. But certainly in this game at least, and also I would say in Dark Souls in general, so 1 and 2, this is the biggest enemy that you can fight. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was pretty challenging. I would certainly recommend doing it. I mean, in the end, maybe the payoff isn't really there. You can also challenge Vendrick without that 5th giant soul, but since I was kind of going for completion in this whole playthrough, at least to some extent, it's not me 100% completing the game, but I wanted to show off the bosses that the game has to offer. It's something that I didn't really 100% do with my Dark Souls playthrough, so here I wanted to make sure that I would take down every single one of them. And as I was saying, this is now going to be one of the final ones. Only 3 bosses left after this, and that is then something that we will do once we then start with the next episode. But guys, already to kind of tell you about how this is going to end, fucker's gonna eat some lightning spears and eat them good, and then say good night, and very much also give us the aforementioned giant soul right here. Not only that, but you also get petrified dragon bones, once kind of implying that there's more to it, right? This was the result of an experiment. And I'm pretty happy that I now managed to talk over all of this without tripping too much, and also took him down without fucking myself too much. It was surely a challenge, but I'm very happy that I actually then overcame all of this. And guys, with all of that out of the way, I want to thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. I will see you next time, and then more optional stuff, and we're getting closer and closer to the end of this. Goodbye.